Let's start with a question. Can oil change alliances? Well, US President Donald Trump believes it can, and is testing that theory with Venezuela. Trump says Venezuela will hand over $2 billion worth of oil to the United States to be sold at market price. And the money, it will be controlled by him. And in Trump's words, it's to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States. The president has directed his energy secretary to execute the plan immediately. The oil will be loaded onto storage ships and sailed straight to American ports. Reports suggest the US is already setting up meetings with oil firms. Venezuela is sitting on oil that it cannot sell. Millions of barrels unable to be moved because of US sanctions. It was part of the Trump administration's pressure campaign that ended with Nicolas Maduro's capture over the weekend.
But the United States proved once again that we have the most powerful, most lethal, most sophisticated, and most fearsome. It's a fearsome military on planet Earth, and it's not even close. I've been saying it for a long time. Nobody can take us.
Venezuela now has a new interim president, but Trump has conditions. According to reports, before Venezuela pumps more oil, Trump wants it to cut ties with China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba. America wants exclusivity. Well, this matters because China is Venezuela's biggest oil buyer, followed by the US and Europe. Trump says Venezuela could export 30 to 50 million barrels of oil, but did not give a time scale. Well, the amount sounds massive. Well, the US consumes 20 million barrels a day. So will Americans see cheaper fuel? Well, that seems unlikely, and here's why. In 2022, then President Joe Biden released 180 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This was 4 to 6 times more than the current slated amount. At that time, gas prices fell by just 13 to 31 cents a gallon over 4 months. Well, that pattern could be repeated. However, Trump's recent remarks succeeded in triggering the market. US oil dropped about 2%, and in early Asian trading, Brent crude slipped 1%. Oil prices are already under pressure as traders worry about a supply glut in 2026. Venezuela, meanwhile, holds the world's largest oil reserves, over 303 billion barrels, which is nearly 1/5 of the global total, ahead of Saudi Arabia and Iran. At today's prices, this sale to the US could raise $1.6 to $2.7 billion. Money Venezuela desperately needs, but there's a catch. It's unclear if Venezuela would have any access to proceeds from the supply, as the country's accounts are frozen due to sanctions, and it's blocked from executing transactions in US dollars. It's also unclear how fast the transfer will happen. Officials say the crude is too heavy to store for long, but experts say crude does not go bad if it's not refined within a certain amount of time. Well, either way, the US president just sent a reminder to the world. In geopolitics, oil is never just fuel, it's also leverage. And Trump is making it very clear who he wants holding the tap. Well, for more on this, we have with us Terrell Jones, who's a senior journalist, joining us live now from California. Welcome to the program. So even if Donald Trump's oil plans for Venezuela succeed, what chance is there of ordinary Venezuelans benefiting?
Hello, thank you for having me today, Kerry. It's ordinary Venezuelans could stand to benefit quite a bit given the enormous economic chaos that's been going on in Venezuela for such a time. If there is steady and sizable petroleum revenue, then very basic needs and infrastructure services in Venezuela could be addressed and improved, whether it's education or health care, medical care, infrastructure for transportation and all. Employment could see an increase, especially in the petroleum sector, obviously. And it could just lead to a lowering of inflation and a stop to just so many of the domestic economic and social problems that are affecting the country that is causing so many Venezuelans to leave.
So we've heard a lot, haven't we, about oil and money, but what about the political situation in Venezuela? How volatile could that yet turn out to be?
Well, it could be extremely volatile because it's really not clear what direction the Trump administration is trying to go. They are not going with the the winner of Democratic elections, Edmundo Urrutia. They're not backing Maria Machado, the opposition leader who wasn't even allowed to run in the last elections, but could conceivably, many believe, would have won. Some people say that Donald Trump doesn't want to Maria Machado to accede to the presidency or ascend to the presidency because she won the Nobel Peace Prize that he wanted for himself. And so out of jealousy, he's trying to freeze her out, which may be the case. Instead, they're backing, Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, but very much of the regime that was just toppled by the American military, and it's unclear if she is going to be amenable to working with the Trump administration. She came out kind of fighting right after the invasion or the operation.
Right, okay. Well, let me just jump in there and ask you this then. Now, given what you say, I mean, to what extent do you think President Trump may already be setting his sights on other countries?
Well, it hasn't taken long for Greenland to come up to the surface with all kinds of talk about how Donald Trump is saying that we must obtain and acquire Greenland once again. Other countries, though, that in the region, such as Panama, well, Colombia specifically, because they have a much stronger line of drug trafficking to the United States, but Panama, etc., other countries that are seen as undemocratic or suffering democratic backsliding, or that present either risks and dangers to the United States because of drug trafficking or other anti-democratic activities, or strategic importance, as the Trump administration seems to view Greenland as presenting.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Terrell Jones, thanks very much indeed for joining us here on First Post America. Thank you.
Thank you.
The world doesn't fit in boxes, so why should your news? From battlefields to negotiation tables, from internet outrage to real-world injustice. The conversations everyone is having and the ones they're avoiding. It's the same show, but this new year, First Post America gets a new look. I'm Kerry Johnston, and this is First Post America.